I have to tell you, and anyone who knows me personally, anyone who listens to this show, anyone who's ever listened to me at Woonsocket City Hall, Harris Hall, knows that I am not easily shocked. I'm not easily put in a position where I'm few of words. I suffer no crisis in self-confidence, and I'm stunned. Stunned. I can't think of a time, and I'm sure there's a few, and let me know, but I can't think of a time in recent Rhode Island history where a bond has gone down to defeat. Not just defeat, but crushed. Not just crushed, but the operative words are repudiation.
The following program is paid programming. The views expressed on the following program are those of its hosts and participants, and nowhere reflect those of the ownership, staff, or advertisers of WNRI.
We'd like to roll the tanks to the Air Force, roll the Army and the Navy, and give us a carry-in. Working. I'm not. 1, 2, 3!
And we are the Coalition. Loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on Woonsocket's Town Hall, AM 1380, 99.9 FM, streaming live at WNRI.com, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course some other ship at CoalitionNews.com. Joining us in just a couple seconds is our guest, from yesterday, Robert Cushman, who, along with Rob Cody, put together a team working with Pat Maloney, who did the unthinkable. And if my voice sounds even hoarser and more raspier than normal, it's because there was a lot of shouting last night. Crushed it. Citizens can make a difference. Don't let anyone ever tell you again that you can't stop the inexorable slide downhill of the financial picture, the fiscal matters, the taxpayer accountability of any municipality in the state of Rhode Island. It doesn't have to happen. Joining me live right from the caller line here, the hotline. We gotta, big stations have they have the sponsorship of the hotline. But I got to work on that. I'm sure there's got to be a pizza joint here in Rhode Island that's worthy of being the true hotline. Robert Cushman, Bob Cushman, the Cushman Report, the Taxpayer Spin. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks, Pat, and thanks for having me on yesterday. I think this really was kind of a David versus Goliath effort here. We had, Build Rhode Island, which is a pact, set up by the construction unions that were sending out, it was probably about 4 different mailings citywide, on the yes vote. We had robocalls going out. I think what, like you said in your opening, what this is showing is that, when people get together, when the taxpayers get together and they really understand the issues, that's what's important. I think the reason why, this $50 million bond got rejected is because the taxpayers, for the past few months, myself, Rob Cody and Pat Maloney and other people in the city have been trying to educate the people as to what's going on in the city.
Barry Cook.
Barry Cook, yeah. I mean, there's so many different people. And the thing that really makes this remarkable is that, we didn't have the resources to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on mailings and robocalls and other things. This actually was a social media neighbor talking to neighbor effort, that got people to understand what was at stake here. And I just want to bring this out right now. This is not the kids versus the taxpayers issue. What this is the taxpayers in the city of Warwick looking at these bloated budgets, looking at a school department that's been totally out of control. Its budget has been taken over by a state budget commission because the school committee doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to stop making cuts. And the Cushman-Report.com, which came out in December, reported on, the disparity between the declining enrollment. Warwick has lost thousands of kids in the last decade, thousands of kids, but yet our staffing levels have increased. This is where, what the taxpayers are asking for. They're asking for the school committee, the city council, and they're asking for the mayor to make some efficiencies and cut your costs. And this is what I'm saying right now to the people that are disappointed and saying we let the kids down. We did not let the kids down. You need to advocate for the school committee, the city officials to start cutting their budget. There's enough money in the city of Warwick. If you start on this path right now and we start cutting tens of millions of dollars from these combined budgets, there will be enough money to build these athletic fields for the kids.
Right. I guess if I have a big takeaway, if I look at this globally, and by the way, did I say congratulations? my voice is shot. I was at a Warwick business last night when, I don't know, about 9:15, 9:30. Like, oh yeah, we got to check the results. Two takeaways. First off, there's a revolution that crystallized a few short weeks ago at a Warwick City Hall meeting when a watchdog city councilman, and I can't possibly pronounce his last name,
Ed Lattisaw.
Ed Lattisaw, okay, was put in the crosshairs by an arrogant, and these are my words, I'm not going to place these on you, by an arrogant little twit city council chair who thought he could play Warwick Game of Thrones. And no. I'm not an expert on Game of Thrones, but there was that scene, the Red Wedding, where, that's kind of what happened that night. And on a global scale, what you see, and I love your reaction to this because you're in the thick of it, you constantly have authoritarian figures like mayors, and I'm not pointing out anyone in particular, city council chairs, committee chairs, and again, the people, other than your city council chair who needs a little bit of therapy, I love most of the mayor and I have a very cordial relationship. He's a very nice man. These are good people, and in particular, Sean Galligan, a great guy, and I think someone that I think has a large role in the future of the state of Rhode Island. But the lesson to be learned from that is you have these authority figures portraying themselves as the experts, and the person who's the worst at this is Angelica Infante Green, who is the chair of your Rhode Island Department of Education, the Grand Poobah, the high exalted ruler, chief water buffalo, if you will, right? And we're the experts. Well, if you get past the noise, they're not, because the results don't bear that out. And the whole notion that we should just hand this over to them, that's what's happened for a generation now. By the way, isn't it ironic that just a few years ago, 10 years ago, pre-COVID, teachers and school departments were complaining about the lack of parental and taxpayer involvement, right? you think they're complaining about that now? But that takeaway that they're the experts and just leave it up to the experts and everything will be swell. Mr. Cushman, is anything swell right now?
I mean, I'm glad you brought that point up because, you know what, we did have a victory yesterday, but on the horizon in the city of Warwick, we are looking at massive tax increases. We have a school budget, the school committee in the last 3 years, overspent its salary line item by $20 million. They're shredding everything else in the school budget, other than looking at the salaries and the benefits. I could just imagine what the supplies and the janitorial supplies and everything else in the school department has probably been totally slashed. But the fact of the matter is that this is only the beginning. We're probably looking at another maximum tax increase this year. The bond, the principal and interest payments on the school construction bonds, the $350 million, haven't even hit yet. The city budget's at an all-time high. And like I said, this was a small victory, but, there are tough times ahead in the city of Warwick. And here's what I really think needs to be done. We kind of took first of all, this referendum never should have happened in the middle of February when nobody's around. But it was done by design. It was done to keep the turnout low. And we basically used that against them. And we got about, I don't know, it was 2,900 people that came out and voted no. But, we got 60,000 people in the city of Warwick that are registered voters. We need to continue to with this movement, we need to educate more people. We need to let people know what's really going on in the city, and we have to fight against this other narrative that it's like the kids against the taxpayers, because that is the furthest thing from the truth. And Pat, let me just tell you this, and I just want to give this example to the people in the city of Warwick. Everybody said, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to build these fields? What are we going to do about that? And this is just an example on the city side of the budget. The city of Warwick, their pension plan, we've been paying 40% of a municipal employee's salary into their pension fund for 20 years, Pat. Think about that for a second. A 401k, nationally, you're lucky if you get a 4% match, right, from your employer. We've been putting 40% in. Think about that for a second. If you get a $50,000 salary and a municipal employee, taxpayers are putting $20,000 a year into their pension plan. And this is all because of the 2008 debacle where the plan went down so much, so we had to prop it up. In private industry, that same $50,000 salary, you're lucky if you get $2,000. Right. That 40% is going away now because we've put tens of millions of dollars into the municipal pension plan to prop it up to funding levels that it needs to be. That 40% is going away. There's going to be a windfall of $5 million that don't need to go into that pension plan anymore each year. And you know what the city is doing with that money? They've already put in some ordinances and they have a plan to put in place to take that $5 million and put it into the Lifetime Health Care Trust Fund, OPEB, other post-employment benefits. They're going to take $5 million of a windfall that could be used for many other things in this city, one of them being maybe to help construct some of these athletic fields, and they're going to put it into a bottomless pit called other post-employment, trust fund, like a pension fund. No changes. We got free lifetime health care for employees on the city side. It's costing us $14 million a year. The other part of that plan was they were going to take $5 million from the health care surplus account on the city side. Now, I don't even know if they could do that anymore because health care is going through the roof. But they were going to put seed money of $10 million for retired employee benefits into these trust plans, and there'll be no benefit to the taxpayers. They don't want to look at what is bankrupting the city of Warwick on the city side, and it's the cost of retiree benefits. And on the converse side, on the school department side, it's the staffing levels. I've looked at reports. If people want to, go to my Cushman-report.com, you can see my 70-page report that talks about what's happened in the school department for over the last 20 years. The school department is overstaffed. We have half-empty elementary school buildings. We need to start closing elementary school buildings down. We need to redistrict kids, make the system more efficient. We have a system right now, a school system that's built for thousands of more kids that don't exist. And of course, you're going to get the blowback from the teachers union. We can't do this and we can't do that. Same thing from the school committee. Read Sean Gallagher. He's the chairman of the school committee. Read what he put out on his Facebook page yesterday. He's like the guy with the cardboard box on the street corner begging for money all the time. No, Sean, you know what? You need to listen to what the taxpayers said yesterday, and you need to cut your budget and get more efficient. Stop asking the Warwick taxpayers for more money to bail out the incompetent decisions of the Warwick School Committee.
Yeah, you're right. And ultimately, it's not the decision of the self-appointed experts that should rule the day. Municipalities in America, what are we celebrating, our 250th anniversary as a nation coming up, or one of the celebrations that are coming up? It's great stuff. But in this country, the vision of the folks who founded this nation was that communities, and let's go back to the representative town meetings that used to be, and it still exists in some settings, but it used to be all over New England. The decisions were made by the community. The directions were made by the community. This wasn't some sort of self-imposed ruling class. And I know I'm being dramatic, and the rhetoric is hot to this morning, the flush of victory. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. The folks who are either elected, appointed, or in some cases self-appointed to run communities in Rhode Island need to listen to and have the direction set by the voters. There is no other excuse. And if the voters, for example, want to change how education is financed, then that's what should happen. If folks are given the opportunity to make their case, or at least a couple of people in this case, in this particular one, were able to make their case. Outside of your group, going on organizations like my group, there was no mass public discussion. There were no town meetings, town halls, not that I'm aware. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm relatively new to the Warwick scene. It's been over the last year. In particular, I've known you guys for a few years, but it's in the last year where it's become just so outrageous. Step back and respond. And Mr. Gallo, I saw that letter. And other than the implication, the tug at the, if you will, at the ego of taxpayers, we won't be able to provide this type of facilities that other communities do. I don't know if you're a fan of The Simpsons, but if you're not, Google or do a search on YouTube for Monorail episode, and a shyster comes on. I'm not saying anyone's a shyster, by the way, before anyone jumps on that train, but it's a great episode because they actually do a dance number and a production number. And at one point, so you have this individual who's pitching a monorail to Springfield, where the Simpsons live. And two lines come out in particular when, in classic salesman, and I've been in sales most of my life, and yes, I actually worked at car dealerships. I was a truck salesman, which is a fancy term for car salesman. And one of the easiest takeaways in sales is in you take the product away. Well, this may not be for you. And in this case, at the monorail episode, the carnival barker who's pitching this goes, well, this really isn't a Springfield idea. It's a Shelbyville idea. And everyone goes, no. And Marge Simpson objects, and in a classic moment, Bart jumps into the production number and says, I'm sorry, Mom, the mob has spoken. And I saw that in yesterday's social media. I saw people in Warwick trying to goad to a obviously hostile taxpayer Facebook pages. Well, I voted yes. And my response, and I didn't respond, but my response typically, if it was my community, well, that's great. It's like the people who voted yes for the soccer stadium. You pay for it.
Well, Pat, you know what the thing is? I don't blame, we got people that, they got to go to work every day. They got to take the kids to Little League and all the different activities. They don't have time,
right?
To really kind of invest in learning what's kind of going on in the city. So it's a very easy narrative to just say, well, let's do it for the kids. It's not a lot of money. Let's just give more money. And, those are the politicians with the agendas that don't want to make the tough decisions. But then on the flip side, you got the senior citizens. Warwick has become a very older city, petrified. They're scared to death that they're going to lose their houses, and they can't. And let me tell you one thing, too, about this drive that we did and why it's so impressive. Because, like I said, this was a social media campaign. It's called Warwick Taxpayers Spin, has increased the number of members by 25% in the last couple days. 400 people joined. I've had thousands of people, you can kind of be a guest on a Facebook page and you can come on. And I think one of the things that we try to do, and this is what I always try to do, I'm a business analyst, I told you, by trade. I work with numbers and I work with facts. And that's the thing I want to present to people. There's no other mechanism in the city of Warwick where the taxpayers could go on there and really learn what is going on in the school budget, what is going on in the city budget. And that's why I created the page, 15 years ago, and so people could come on there and they could look at the facts and look at, some of the analytical things. I've studied the budget now going on 22 years. I have every single line item in the city and school budget for 22 years. So I could show people the trends that are going on. And this is the thing that really gets me upset. You put this stuff out. I put the CushmanReport.com out. I testified before the Warwick Budget Commission is taking over control of the school budget because the school committee, they took it away from them. And they can't come back with me and argue against the facts that I presented. So what do? They make the personal attacks. Oh, you don't care about kids. It's the cowardly way of trying to attack somebody. But here's the whole point of this thing. We got 60,000 people that vote in the city of Warwick. We only had a fraction of people that voted this thing down. The people in this city need to continue to talk to their neighbors. They need to continue to spread the word and educate, the voters on what's going on in the city. And, I'm looking at holding maybe some town hall meetings and things like that and get some other people. Rob could talk about school construction. I have some accountants and some other people that might be interested in coming in and breaking down the city audit report, to the citizens so we can kind of really educate people as to what's going on. And I think if we do that, I think what you're going to find out, and I'm asking the citizens right now, who's ever listening, if you ever were interested in running for office, we need you. Because the people in office, there's a handful of people, Ed Lattisaw, we got Brian Napper and a couple maybe people on the city council, but we need new people to run for office. These people don't want to make the tough decisions. And this movement that we're doing right now can easily die if we don't keep the momentum up and start getting more people to pay attention to really what's going on in the city. And really what we need to do is we need to get people to run for office against these people who don't want to make the tough decisions.
Yeah, and this is, and by the way, after, if I could be so bold, a lifetime of activism, I constantly preach to people to take the time over the next day or two and celebrate the success. Yourself, Mr. Cody, Council Member Lattisaw, Pat Maloney, put a lot of, personal effort on the line. And there's what I call the reputational cost. And this isn't easy for the people who are willing to go front and center and say no. There are business opportunities potentially closed off to you. There are the attempts at humor at your expense to be made sport of. It's endless, and quite frankly, I've felt it myself. I know that.
Well, you know something. I just want people to realize this. People say, "Well, why don't you run for office? Why don't you do something?" I did run for office. I was on the school committee over 20 years ago. When we had a major teacher contract that we couldn't get a contract. I was on the city council 20 years ago. I was a one-term city councilman. Why was I a one-term city councilman? I was a one-term city councilman because 20 years ago, I could see the train wreck that we're now in right now. And I proposed massive changes to eliminate lifetime health care in the city, to reform our pension plans, the health care plan, to do a lot of different things that if they just listened and did just a marginal part of it, we could have saved tens of millions of dollars and not be in this mess right now. So the thing that people have to realize is that, it's hard to buck the system. And because you got paid lobbyists from the teachers union and all the other unions and things like that are going to constantly go after you. That's their job. They're paid to do that. The only way you can, battle against that is you have to have the support of the citizens and the taxpayers. And, what we're asking for, is just some level of common sense. Like, for example, our police officers, our firefighters should have top-of-the-line health care plans. They deserve it for the dangerous jobs that they do. But we have to always also measure, we can't be giving lifetime health care for free when they retire, and have to pay those premiums for 30 or whatever years that it is, because we can't afford it. It's not that we don't want to do it. But when you say things like that, it's very easy for the special interest groups to demonize you, to go out into the wards like they did to me 20 years ago and galvanize the people together. And people aren't educated. They don't know what's going on. So that's the thing that we need to do, not only in Warwick, but probably across this entire state. People need to educate. I mean, look at the state budget. It's ridiculous how much money we're spending. And the same thing with the city budget in Warwick and the school budget. It's going to be up to the taxpayers. Where do you want to go in this city? Do you want it to be livable for not only the kids, where they can have good facilities, good schools, but also for the senior citizens? In fact, here's another thing. Warwick's debt, our unfunded liabilities are going to be over $1 billion. $1 billion for the size of the city of Warwick. It's going to crush our tax base. And then the other thing, too, is we're looking at a potential tens of millions of dollars and a lawsuit that was hidden from the taxpayers. There's a lawsuit out there. They're asking for $75 million. Hopefully they're not going to get that, but that will bankrupt the city. But if this lawsuit comes in at, let's say, $10 million, $15 million, the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for anything over $5 million. With all the other expenses that are coming due, it's going to crush this city, and it could put us into receivership. And you know what? Maybe we need to go into receivership because we need to level set things, because they're not going to get done, working with the special interest groups.
I have to take a quick break for commercials, but when we come back, I'd like to talk about that lawsuit. We really focused heavily on the bond issue yesterday for obvious reasons. The election was ongoing. We were trying to get a last-minute grab of people's attention span in the run-up to this. And, I we'll never know what impact it had, but it was important that we do it, that we pull out all the stops. What it was, it's Super Bowl weekend, right? They already said it. It's the big game weekend. No, it's Super Bowl weekend. And on Super Bowl weekend, we are going to employ a wide range of sports cliches in the next segment. We are the coalition. We are louder than ever. We are prouder than ever. We are civilly disobedient, and we are free of the outrage porn that seems to have taken over most of major American media. We will be right back.
A Rhode Island tradition, Yacht Club Soda has been in business since 1915, located at 2239 Mineral Spring Avenue, North Providence. The soda is made there and shipped out to local stores. But did you know that you can shop and pick out your favorite flavors? Yacht Club Soda has 34 soda flavors to choose from. They have sodas, seasonal sodas, special releases, seltzers, sparkling water, and tonic, made with the finest extracts. Visit Yacht Club Soda's factory store and choose your favorite sodas. Open Monday through Saturday from 9 to 5. Do you have any questions? Call us at 401-231-9290. And did you know that Yacht Club Soda is Rhode Island's official soda? I think I'll try one of their new releases, either Yacht Club Sour Grapes or Yacht Up. Such a hard decision. Maybe I'll pick up both.
This message is brought to you by Brewed Awakenings Coffee House, your go-to place for breakfast, lunch, and enjoy an acai bowl and much more. Enjoy my personal favorite, The Awakening, an everything bagel packed with bacon, applewood smoked ham, pork sausage, tomato, and American cheese. I choose to have the bagel cobbed out to save calories. This and more are available all day, every day at Brewed Awakenings Coffee House, a Rhode Island staple since 1996. Visit any of our locations in Johnston, Cranston, and Warwick.
Ever wonder why there are so many pizza places to choose from? Well, it's because there are so many styles of pizza to enjoy. And one of Woonsocket's oldest pizza parlors, Ollie's Pizzeria, has perfected the pizza science behind them all. Their traditional pizza is a delicious place to start. With Ollie's signature sauce, it's a perfect balance on flavor and texture. Looking for something thicker? Ollie's Pizzeria has perfected the Chicago deep dish. Not only thick, the sauce cooked on top brings a whole new flavor profile to every bite. Ollie's Sicilian half sheet also provides a thicker but airier crust. And looking for a thin crust? Ollie's has that covered too, along with gluten-free crust and Ollie's new grilled pizza. With an extended menu of premium toppings, there is a pizza waiting for you right now. And may I recommend their meatball? Call 401-766-1157 or stop by 204 South Main Street, Woonsocket to order with Ollie's friendly and courteous staff.
Hey folks, at this moment of the show, I'd like to talk about Yacht Club Soda. Now, I know you just heard a commercial about Yacht Club Soda, but let me go into a little bit more detail. We use cane sugar, and I say we because I have a business relationship. I work there part-time. I'm the outside wholesale salesman. Excuse me, very professional. And as well as market and on behalf and for them. Real cane sugar, none of this. You won't feel like you're in a New Jersey chemical factory. Natural flavors, as I like to say, in their ginger ale, which is superior. Ginger was harmed egregiously in the manufacture of their ginger ale. Just the light touch of carbonation. You know, if you're going out to dinner at any one of our fine restaurants, request Yacht Club Soda. If they don't have it, say, why not? And tell them to call Pat Ford at 617-835-1899. You know, I don't think Mr. Bouchard is listening right now. Do you really want to have a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Coke with some of the meals that you can get at places in Woonsocket? My goodness. Elevate your game. And if you're a restaurant owner, respond to that. You work hard to produce these magical meals. Rhode Island is like no place else when it comes to small restaurant culture. And it's at every level, from incredible sandwich shops, small local seafood restaurants. We elevate breakfast here to an art form. Maybe you're the designated driver. Maybe you just don't choose to drink anymore. You don't want to have a Diet Pepsi. Ugh. Yuck. You're going out to eat. You want to have something special. And if you're a restaurateur, you want to serve your guests something special for those who choose not to drink. And any one of our 30 or so flavors, seasonal, traditional, from blue raspberry to my personal favorite now, black cherry, to our birch beer, our sarsaparilla, our cream soda, our root beer, our traditional favorites that have been around for 110 years. It's Rhode Island's official state soda. So listen, give me a call. If you're looking for a restaurant that's got it, we just advertised a couple. Brewed Awakenings has Yacht Club Soda at all their locations. Step up your soda game. Soda can be a fun treat that can be flavorful and with a little bit of adventure, and you can do that with Yacht Club Soda. Give me a call, 617-835-1899. We are the Coalition, loud and proud. We're back. Joining us live via the miracle of telephony is in fact Bob Cushman, and we're celebrating. And if it sounds like we're spiking the football, again, understand what you're dealing with here. Mr. Cushman is a lifetime financial professional, a former employee of the major employer here in the great city of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Degrees in finance, just an incredibly accomplished individual. And he's approaching it with I think, the professional respect and the tone it deserves. And then there's me, who's none of that. Even though I may be a former accountant, and believe me, Mr. Cushman, I was the worst accountant in America. Just hated it and was terrible at it. But I'm spiking the football because I've seen the slings and arrows hurled at people like Bob and Rob Cody. I've seen the hours spent away from family investing in a community that seems at times to not want to listen. I've experienced that all personally. So damn straight, I'm spiking the football. I'll even throw in a egregious booyah for a moment like this because it matters. Rhode Islanders, if they do the right thing, if they follow the path, they can take back control of their civic lives. And you guys just did a class in how to do that. You schooled these folks despite all the odds being against you. Again, self-involved, self-interested labor unions doing mailings on behalf of unnamed, undisclosed, uncredited, nebulous, dark money civic organizations. Right? A governmental body that I don't believe, and I'm going to be doing some investigating because there's some splaining that's got to be done. Lucy, there's splaining that's got to be done. And I'm going to be at the next town council meeting, if at all possible, and I'm going to ask them questions why there wasn't a disclosure of the implicit financing costs as well as the cost of placing the bond, why there wasn't town halls discussing in detail where the bond is going. That's leadership. That's accountability. And from my experience, and folks, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to apologize. I haven't had to do a lot of apologizing the last 25 years, Bob. So we find ourselves on the brink of another precipice, and there's a lawsuit out there, and I wonder if you could just educate us about that lawsuit to the best of your ability, because who knows what the hell really is going on.
No, that's sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, Pat, let me just say this first, because you did talk about the lack of, disclosure of what this bond offering was about. And if this was typically done in a normal election cycle, you probably would have got a pamphlet in the mail and it would have explained the whole thing. But, that's the theme in Warwick. The theme is hide the facts and shut down any questioning of city of school leaders. That's what they want to do. So, the reason that, Rob Cody and myself and others, we wanted to bring up this $75 million lawsuit against the city is because nobody knew about it. And, this is a lawsuit between an individual and the Warwick Police Department. I don't know all the details of what happened or whatever, but that's not the point why we were trying to bring that up. The point we're trying to bring up is that, the city, the mayor and the city council, and I even think, some of the school officials might have known about this because, before you go out, to sell your bonds and things like that, the credit rating agencies look at, potential litigations and other kinds of things. And, we found out that we have this major lawsuit. It was actually documented in the audit report, and, nobody reads the audit report in the city. I read the audit report when I look at, the pensions and the health care and things like that. But it even said that that could be a major issue. And the whole point about that was that how in God's name could you be sponsoring to borrow $50 million more in a bond for athletic fields that aren't going to be built for 3 years when you have this hanging over our head? Wouldn't a responsible person say, hey, you know what? We need to take a timeout on borrowing new money because we have no idea what direction this thing's going to go to, and the taxpayers could be on the hook for who knows how many millions of dollars if there's a settlement over $5 million. If there's a settlement of over $5 million, the Warwick taxpayers have to pay that amount. And, like I said, I don't know all the different details. I don't want to get into the details. I'm not saying anything against the police officer or whatever, because that was not the point of us disclosing that. It was the irresponsibility of asking the taxpayers to borrow $50 million more with this thing hanging over our head. And let me just tell you another thing, like I said about the theme. That's point number one. Point number two, this $20 million I talk about the school deficit. In December of 2024, the school committee chairman, Sean Galligan, got up and before the Warwick City Council as a part of executive communication, and you experienced what executive communication was about the last council meeting, but that's a situation where you get to say whatever the hell you want and no one can question you. And at that meeting, he basically said, no, there's no deficit. It's an accounting, it's reconciliation at the end of the year. So he got on a diatribe. No one could question him to hide the fact that the school department had a $6 million deficit in the 2024 budget. And what happened a few months later? It exploded that they found out in the next year's budget it was $9 million. So everything that he was saying wasn't true, but nobody could question him. Nobody from the city council and the taxpayers. Now let's talk about the school construction project and the two new high schools. We were promised all kinds of amenities. We had these great slideshows in 2022. We're going to have walking tracks. We're going to have this. We're going to have air conditioning. Well, what did they go and do? And it was going to be $350 million and not a penny more. Mayor Picozzi said it. Leah Hazelwood, who's on the school committee, was running for mayor, said it. We got to give Patrick Maloney kudos because he's the only candidate that was running for mayor that said it could never be done. Rob Cody, who's a professional building schools, said 4 years ago it could never be done. So what did they do? As they start going through this project, they say, we can't have all this. We're way over budget. They cut 100,000 square feet out of these two high schools. 100,000 square feet. That's the equivalent of $60 million. No indoor track. They got rid of some of these athletic facilities. So you know what? We're paying for a Ferrari and we're getting a Ford. And one other thing, and you touched upon this. At the last council meeting, the council president was trying to remove Ed Ladisor, who's the chairman of the finance committee, because he asked department head tough questions during the finance committee meeting. You know what their mantra is in City Hall and in the City Council? Anthony Sinapi is the council president. You do not ask questions during council meetings. You do it behind closed doors. And that's why he tried to get rid of Ed Ladisor. And that was just another moment where the taxpayers stormed City Hall and said, we're with Ed. And Pat, you were at that meeting. It was probably the most fiasco meeting. It was a circus. I've actually filed an open meetings complaint against Mr. Sinapi and the city council, for violating the open meetings laws, and we'll see what happens with that with the Attorney General. They're investigating that. But that's what I'm saying. The theme in Warwick is to keep ignorant people uneducated, and what we're going to try to do moving forward is educate people, let people know what's going on in the city, so when we have a general election and tens of thousands of people come out, it's not going to be 2,000 people that stop wasteful spending. It's going to be the entire city demanding accountability and changes in the way the school government works and the city government works, and no more new money. Cut your spending.
If folks don't think that these lawsuits don't provide and put in place an exigent threat, I talked about this briefly yesterday about the town of Warren. The town of Warren settled, and the underlying facts aren't critical here, with someone who had alleged gross negligence of a Warren EMT response at an accident, settled for $13 million. Now, to your point, what is it? Is it the Rhode Island Interlocutory Trust that provides this, I believe? You can fact check me, and I'm not an expert. I just simply play one on the radio. That has left the city of Warren. They had to come up with $8 million. Now, that's just $8 million. Now, we've yet to see if there's settlement, if they lose, how much it is. But who's paying that $8 million? Taxpayers. You are paying it, citizens of Warren. And Warren's not a wealthy community. Warren's not Borington or Bristol. Warren is a great working class. Well, it's becoming bougie because of its proximity to water, but it's a wonderful city filled with wonderful people who now have this $8 million bill that they had to come out with, and it comes through in the form of property taxes. It's math. You got to math the math, like the kids say. You know, it's numbers. And numbers don't lie, and numbers are irrelevant to people's feels. You know, I watched a few people online, and listen, they're entitled to their opinion, express extreme disappointment that the city's going in the wrong direction, that we need to do these for our wonderful Warwick schools. Okay, then figure out a way to pay for it. And if you're so intent on it, like every other project, whether it be the stupidity in Cumberland, another show, another time. We've done a lot of work on this. The Lodge at Diamond Hill, where the city spent $9 million on a meeting room. Whether it be in Warren's case, whether it be in this case, you don't need these things. You would like to have them. You don't need them. And just like your household, you know, I often talk about education. My children did not go to public school, and they also did not go to Disney as a result.
Pat, I wrote something 4 years ago when we were talking about, building these two new high schools. And, you could probably go on my page, my Warwick Taxpayers Spin, and it was called Shared Sacrifice. And what I meant by that is that you can't only ask the taxpayers to sacrifice and higher taxes if you want to, build these facilities. I said it has to be shared. What I meant by that is that the school teachers have to make concession. The Warwick Teachers Union, the WISE Union, who makes up, the janitors and the office workers, and all the unions and everybody on the city side. So that means, that fell on deaf ears. We've been giving out 12, 13% raises for all the bargaining units. Our co-pays on our health care. We're lucky if we can get a 20% co-pay. There's been no shared sacrifice. The only finger that's been pointed has been pointing back on the taxpayers to just say, give us more money. And, just to let you know the situation in the school department, like I said, I'm a business analyst, so I'm not a financial. I was never financial. I'm a business analyst. In from 2022 to 2026, and I'm counting the COVID money, the COVID money was a cash cow that probably destroyed a lot of the districts and the municipalities in Rhode Island, because people used one-time money and they infused it into their operating budget. In the city of Warwick, in the school department, we gave the school department about $24 million of new tax dollars over that 5-year period. The previous 5 years, it was 11.5. We gave them double the amount of money from 2022 to 2026. But on top of that, they got almost $20 million more in COVID money. They spent almost $45 million in 5 years, and that's not enough. They use ESSER funds, one-time funds, to keep their staffing levels bloated when their enrollment was dropping by 1,000 kids in 5 years, a 1,000 kid drop in enrollment in 5 years, and your employment levels are going higher. We have half-empty schools. We've lost so many kids. We have 13 elementary schools in Warwick. Some of them are operating at 51%, 52%, 53%. Totally inefficient. But you know what? When you start talking about consolidation, closing schools down, it's not easy to do. Read the Cushman-Report.com. They did it 20 years ago. It wasn't easy, but it had to be done. But we don't have anybody in office who wants to even look at this. There comes a point where you have to be the adults in the room, go up against the Warwick Teachers Union and say, we need to downsize this school system. We're going to have to reduce staffing. And if they do something like that, in my opinion, they could easily save $10 million out of that school budget. Right. And you know what? You will have enough money in 3 years to pay for your athletic fields when they need to be built without borrowing any new money and raising taxes.
Right. And, I fear what has to happen at this point, and this is even a bigger challenge. Not only do those schools need to be consolidated, but in order to pay down this debt, And this is difficult because once you sell these buildings and property, they're gone. They'll be developed. Warwick is a very attractive place geographically to do business. Maybe not so with its municipal governance, but it's a very attractive place to work. They're gone, but again, there has to be a price to pay at some point. So let's close some of those schools and sell that property and pay down the debt.
Well, Pat, you know, another thing too we don't talk about. You know, people talk about, well, we're getting buy one get one free for the school. Well, first of all, we can't even afford that anyway. So I don't even want to get to that because I don't have enough time on that. But the total bond that the $350 million is going on the city of Warwick's credit report. Think about that like your FICO credit score. S&P just downgraded the city of Warwick because of these school deficits. There's going to become a point in time, and I don't know if they're going to amortize these high school bonds 20 years, 25 years, or whatever. We have some elementary schools that are 100 years old. Don't you think maybe in the next 10 years or maybe 5 years, 10, 15 years, we might need to build some new elementary schools? Right. How are we going to do that when we're so debt-ridden? We're going to be $200 million over the legal debt limit set by the state of Rhode Island. What do you think S&P and the other credit agencies are going to see? If this was a regular person that did something like that, your credit score would probably be 500. You wouldn't be able to borrow any more money because they would say you're tapped out, you're maxed out. And you know what? So what does that mean? In the next 5, 10, 15 years, when some kind of disaster or something happens in the city, we need to borrow more money. How are we going to be able to do that? What kind of interest rates are we going to be paying? Nobody in this city looks at this stuff because you know what the planning in the city of Warwick is? It's 6 months to a year. We don't even have a 5-year forecast. We haven't even been told how much of our taxes are going to increase because of all this borrowing. They won't tell us that because if they told us that, people would be storming City Hall. And I can guarantee you, come this April and May in the budget hearings, you're looking at another maximum tax increase this year when your bills come out in July.
Right. And, you know, one need only look about 15 or 20 miles to the north to the city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, to see what the future holds. There was a point where one of the schools was undergoing significant reconstruction where there was a hold put on. And it was, you know, shocking that it wasn't well publicized by the media because, you know, when you're the media in this state and you know, you're getting a significant part of your ad revenue from the state or from the people who run the state in the form of their campaigns, you're not in a rush to disclose this, but you know, because they were out of money, and you know, and the Grubby administration tried to portray it as something else, but they were just simply out of money.
There was a school, and I don't remember which one it was. It was in Providence. It was the building I think was 100 years old. I can't recall the name. They put $40 million into that, and it was the same buzzword. They had an opening. 21st century learning, wall light, this and that. They did it for $40 million in a 100-year-old building. You know, go to Providence College, go up to Brown University. How old are those buildings? You know, it's not always the buildings. You know, Tollgate, in my opinion, didn't need to be torn apart. You know, the school was, I don't know, it was built in the 70s. I mean, you know, are we going to continue to, you know, and it was also for equity, they said. Well, you know, Pilgrim and the kids over on this side of the schools are going to get new. I heard a councilman say this. Well, if they're going to get schools, we don't want our taxes going higher if we're not going to get a new high school. So we heard that equity thing. And I said to him, so what does that mean? If we ever build a new elementary school, we're going to rip all the elementary schools down? It's just a total irresponsible way of doing things. And I hope, you know, that this wakes up the eyes of the taxpayers. And what we need is the people that are paying attention right now is probably 5 people that aren't paying attention for every one that is. You need to start talking to your neighbors. You need to start spreading the word. People need to get educated. We can build these athletic fields for these kids. There's enough money around there. And we could also provide tax relief to the senior citizens and other people. But it's going to take the city of Warwick demanding and voting in people that want to make tough decisions.
Well, we've only got about a minute left. So one of the things you and I have discussed is you making regular appearances on this show to update. Now, this is ostensibly a Woonsocket show, but it's clear that the issues of the day demand state coverage from somewhere. because it just ain't happening. Not at this level, not at the technical level that someone with your institutional knowledge and expertise can provide. So I think we're going to be talking offline about you joining us once a month on a routine basis, more when necessary. There's an open door for you and Mr. Cody and Mr. Maloney and the entire crew. I said I wouldn't spare the cliches. This is a Super Bowl win. And it needs to be treated as such. It needs to be built upon. It needs to be shared. How you did it, the way you did it, the data that you put out there needs to be shared to other municipalities so this can grow everywhere. And any responsible adult knows this is not a series of personal attacks. It's, it's adults doing business. Listen, we got about 20 seconds left. Tell us your website again.
The report is called the Cushman, Cushman report.com. It's a 20-year history of looking at the school department and how they did things right 20 years ago.
Remember that foul evening when you heard the banshees howl? There was lazy, drunken bastards singing.
Hey, we're out. Bob, thank you so much.
I Woonsocket.